call me Crazy Joe? Well, now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now, today we will take a look at another collector's edition figure, and that will be Sergeant Rock. Now, this one did seem pretty interesting to me, something I was really looking forward to. There are a couple little things that I do not like, but in the end, surprisingly, after a few tweaks and touch ups, I am really enjoying this figure. Now, in this wave of collector edition figures, you will also get Connor Kent Superboy and Manga Batman. But for today, we will take a look at Sergeant Rock. Now, I remember this guy from when I used to read comics. Never really had a Sergeant Rock comic book, but I've heard of him. There used to be rumors that they were going to make a movie about him. So I did get the gist of what his character was about. Now, in the more modern age, they have changed him up a little bit, brought him into a more modernized world, but he still keeps the same gritty soldier and leader that is the core of his character. Now, he does look pretty efficient in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. Well, first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. The only difference being that with these collector's edition, you do have a stamped on silver logo. He also has his data file card. On the front, you have a pretty gritty image of Sergeant Rock from the comics. I do like the way they did the sort of monochrome artwork. In the back, you can see like a battlefield or a kind of war visage, going on. So that's pretty cool. It's a nice looking card. You do have the same art on the back of the box. On the back, you do have some information about Frank the Soldier. Pretty cool. We'll hold on to that. And as I said before, he has a long history in DC Comics, starting off in World War II, going through the ages. They always put him in different wars, but he's still the same grizzled soldier. Even in these times, he hangs around with the creature commandos, Frankenstein, some other, more supernatural characters. A lot of fighting zombies and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool. Now, he does come with accessories. First off, he comes with two alternate left hands, one sort of open splayed hand and one gripping hand. Comes with two alternate right hands, one pointing hand and one pistol grip hand for weapons, so that is always appreciated. Of course, he does come with two fists. He also comes with his army helmet. Now, this looks pretty cool. It does have the stripes on the front and pretty easy to take it on and off from his head and does fit well with the figure. He comes with this kind of looks like a K-bar knife, but this one's more of a pointy, while the K-bars are usually more of a slant blade. But this does go on him. He has a port where you can hang that on his waist. It does come with folding shovels. Now, it doesn't fold, but it does have some nice detail and is in a nice silver paint. Now, he comes with his backpack, pretty damaged and has a lot of straps and detail. And of course, it has the storage for you to hang his shovel on there. Now, of course, all these fit really well on him. Once you get him geared up with everything, he does look pretty complete. But of course, we know that he is missing his weapons. Now, we'll take a look at it later on, actually putting them in his hand. But I did have two rifles that I was going to use with him. One in a wood grain with dark metal, and one in a wood grain but more silver metal. So pretty cool. If you do have the munitions packs from McFarlane. There's a ton of different choices that you could use with him, so that's pretty nice. Now we are getting Jonah Hex, which is going to have the first weapons in a while with McFarlane figures. But we do know that this is something that Warner Brothers made a rule about. And luckily, we see that McFarlane is skirting the rules a little bit. So sadly, he didn't come with his weapons, firearms, but I'm pretty sure if they would have assigned him some, it would probably be these rifles. So it's, that is basically what you were going to get with this guy. So it's not a complete deal breaker if you have the munitions packs. Now, of course, you get this card stand, which I'm not a big fan of these. I had heard a rumor that they may be getting rid of these. You had a couple of people asking about it at the Comic Con. And I, for one, will be really happy once, we're not getting these anymore and getting a little bit more accessories. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. Pretty good representation of a soldier. The artwork changes in the comics from different versions of Sergeant Rock because you have that more, World War II era. Then you kind of get, sometimes you'll get a sort of Vietnam feel to where he's at. Of course, nowadays you have him in as sort of that fish out of water with supernatural, superpowered characters, but he's still just your regular grunt soldier. And for what I could comprehend, it probably does work. I have seen this done before. Just your normal, really strong spirited character that is able to hang with more supernatural, superpowered comic characters. So pretty interesting. This does mean that you could go from, if he has sleeves, if he doesn't have sleeves, there are some inconsistencies and inaccuracies with this figure. But since I'm not a big, military buff, I don't really look at every little detail of a uniform. It's not a big deal to me. I just basically see this guy as your, soldier, especially once you get him armed up and get all the weapons on him and his helmet. He just basically turns into a soldier for me. So not a big deal. But for first impressions, they did a good job of replicating a sort of soldier uniform. This one being a slight bit more modern of a take on the soldier. And not even modern, I would say more like an adaptive soldier that he's using, things that are in his hands now to make him a better fighter and make his uniform more efficient. So pretty good, pretty nice representation of Sergeant Rock. Now we will get in, let's get into the head sculpt. A lot of things online about what this looked like. I think I called him a Mario from the old neighborhood or something like that. But I, for one, can kind of see what they were going for. I did repaint this guy, so I'll show you guys what I did, at the end of the video. And I couldn't get over it. I just kept looking at the artwork that are in the comics, and I could see what they were going for with the facial structure and everything. But I just think the paint applications were what really made him look like, not Sergeant Rock. But now to me, he looks a lot better. But we'll take a look at that later on. Because first thing you could see is he has that beard really prominent on his face. The eyebrows are a little bit thin and high. So all this stuff I looked into and I kind of figured out what was wrong, what made his features not really replicate what we see in the comics. But he does have a pretty stern head sculpt, a lot of cool detail. Now the hair is another thing. I think they could have went with a more military cut flat top. This one's looks like he hasn't had a haircut in the jungle in a couple of months. But the color is accurate. They could have got it a little bit thinner. I think the dark brown lower part of the hair is what doesn't make it look like a military cut. But for what it is, I could touch up some more blonde color to that dark brown to make it match a little bit more and look more like a military haircut. Take a look at the articulation. He does look down very well. He looks up as well. You got right to left. Of course, you could tilt his head for some attitude. So, all in all, a good Sergeant Rock head sculpt. I just think that the paint applications are what really messed up the final execution with this figure. But like I said, we will take a look at how I touched up mine, and you can always, touch it up and do things. Now, drop down and take a look. He does have his dog tags on his costume. He does have his dog tags up here, down into the belt. Now, one thing is this torso is one of those that doesn't have an inside core. Of course, this being sort of a playoff of the Dark Knight Rises Bane. A lot of similar parts, but he does have some different stuff on him. Take a look at the waist. You do have side to side. You got the tilt-a-whirl, lower waist swivel, no upper chest swivel, and no front crunch because of the way the figure is designed with that sort of soft, pliable midsection. But you can at least get some movements and twist them, get them in cool poses. Lean back, also very minimal. Take a look at the shoulders. You do have that socket and bushing ring joint in there. You could see it moving around, so you do get a lot of range up and down, front to back, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, straighten them out. These are the Bane arms, just with a little bit of added paint at the forearms, down into the wrist, which give you that 4 ways of articulation from McFarlane. On the other side, you do have the same thing, but a cool little detail that they did add is that military watch on his right wrist. Pretty cool little detail. I did notice that you can move it around, and it has a certain way that it sits in the wrist, and you can remove it if you would like. But I think it adds a little realistic detail to him having his military issued watch on him in a military shade of green. T-pose pretty smoothly. Looks good. Arms above the head also look good. Now you can't really move around the torso area because of the way it is built on this body. The belt also being a little bit restrictive. But we'll take a look at the legs as well. He has a slight thigh swivel. It is pretty rough, but you have a little bit of movement there. You can slightly move the boot from side to side. Kick up respectively. Kick back as well, pretty far. Especially being restricted by the lower part of his shirt. Cock out the leg. You do have that McFarlane hip swivel. Straighten them out, up and down at the ankle, right to left, rocker, and of course toe articulation. Now before we go take a complete look at the lower body, I do know what they were going for. They were going for a military look with all the cargo pockets and the way the boots are designed. But of course this is a reuse of the Bane, so it has a more modern, modified look. As I said, I kind of take it as that he changes his costume on his own because he's been in a war so long. He adds, his own pockets or kind of upgrades them as he sees fit. I don't know. It's just the way my mind looks at it. So not a big deal to me. I'm not like I said, I'm not into really looking at every detail of military stuff on figures. And if you're a random consumer, this is, just a regular soldier. So he can pretty much satisfy that soldier that you're looking for. Take a look at him from the bottom, no tread and no identifying marks. Moving up the back, some nice sculpt work in the folds of the pants. Into that belt, you do have a pretty nice canteen there hanging on the belt with a lot of pouches. Of course, here you can add the blade where it's supposed to go into there on the pouch. On the side of the belt there, it goes in pretty smoothly. All in all, pretty happy with this guy. I mean, nothing spectacular, but as always, once you add your own touches, these figures really go up to that upper level. They said you can add all this stuff, the backpack, the shovel, You have alternate hands that you could use to take a lot of different photos. That's one of the main things I always, had in mind before we even received this figure, and that was that he was going to be really fun to pose. You could probably find some zombie figures to put him up against for display, which would look pretty awesome. Weapons, you could go all your military routes. You could have this bazooka also from McFarlane. So it's just up to your imagination, the way you want to take him. But he does hold the weapons very well. He does look really good once you get him complete, especially once you add the helmet. It really, you know, gives him that soldier feel. Now, surprisingly enough, I do have the DC Direct Sergeant Rock, which, of course, minimal in articulation, very archaic articulation, but it does work. Uh, this one didn't come with his weapons, but I do. But you can use the McFarlane ones with him as well. He looks fine. One thing he does have is that he is very much so more comic accurate than the McFarlane version. So the McFarlane version has way more articulation. This one looks a lot more like he does in the comics. Even his helmet is removable, and you got that buzz cut under there. Now, if you look at this one, you could see how all of the hair is the same sort of strawberry blonde color. That is why I think the dark color on this one probably didn't work as well. But for what he is a pretty nice Sergeant Rock figure, especially representing exactly what you see in the comics. One thing I did do is I wanted to see how a head swap would look on this guy. I did use the Jim Gordon head. Now, the thing that's wrong with this head is that it is very small compared to the blockhead that Sergeant Rock came with. So it can look a little small, especially they made this one for a very thin body. But the military cut and the way the face is clean cut actually works a lot better. I did put the helmet on him, but it looks a little bit large. Surprisingly enough, the DC Direct helmet did fit on him a little bit better, so that's something else you could look at. But if you want an alternate soldier, this is definitely a way to go. Now, I wanted to paint on this guy, and it really did improve the figure a lot. So what I ended up doing was I taped it off, the eyes, a little bit of the eyebrows, all the hair, and I sprayed it with a matte flesh paint. And surprisingly, what it did do that was awesome was that it covered up a lot of that, beard that I thought was just sticking out too much on the head sculpt. And once I sprayed it a couple times, I left it like that. And what happens is the beard bleeds through a little bit, giving it like a off blue grayish color. And that works really well because Sergeant Rock is just supposed to have like stubble. He's not supposed to have a full beard. So once I sprayed it and it toned down that beard, it does match a lot, a lot closer to what it looks like in the comics. Not perfect, but it does tone down the features and makes it feel more like a soldier, especially like an old school battalion soldier. And then once you get that helmet on him, you could tweak it, put it forward a little bit, but it just gives him a more solid Sergeant Rock look. So really fun to pose. You can add different weapons. And once you do that repainting, he is very fun to put in poses and take figure photography. Now I think what I am going to do is try painting the lower part of the hair a little bit more blondish and see if even that makes him look more like the comic book Sergeant Rock. But anyways, guys, I waited very long to get this guy in hand. I've had him for a couple of weeks, but I'm definitely not disappointed. You do have to tweak him a little bit. I think McFarlane could have waited until he could figure out how he was going to put weapons with the figure. But you do have the munitions pack, and that kind of, nullifies that a little bit. But I think he is a very nice addition to the DC Multiverse collection, especially me that I'm not a big, soldier collector or military figure collector. So I'm happy to have at least one very awesome soldier of fortune in my collection. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.